Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. We've made it to video 6 out of 6. It's your girl Brittany here. Of course, we're going to be discussing my issues in women's studies class. And like I said, this is going to be video number 6 out of 6. So if you haven't seen the other videos, you might want to go watch those first, because they are all in sequential order of the chapters of our book called I forget every time, Global Gender Issues in the New Millennium. And the name of this chapter is going to be about gendered resistances, which covers about pages 237 to 270. So the whole idea of these gendered resistances is who is resisting and what are they resisting. That's what you get from reading the title of the chapter. So obviously, as we discussed in chapter 1, that what gendered means, basically the spectrum of, sexual identification outside of your actual sexual orientation or your sex, like biological sex, as well as, and then resistances is to obviously resist, but what are we resisting? The resistance is to be in opposition to the general stereotypes or general standards of living for these gendered people. So amongst this chapter, basically what we're going to start off with is talking about how women all face these gendered resistances and even have almost a gender resistance amongst themselves, because all women are subject to simultaneously the same issues. However, different women experience different issues because of their intersectionalities, as we discussed in chapter 1 as well. So, however, the issue is trying to find that balance of representing all women while representing all women effectively, while also representing the issues of specific women. But at the same time, regardless of race, socioeconomic status, or sexual orientation, all women do have an overlying feminism or feministic beliefs or stereotypes or gender issues that lie within all women, whether it's cultural beauty standards, whatever they may be, bodily harm issues, domestic violence issues, or etc. These are all examples of issues that all women, all gendered people face, but specifically, especially women. So this brings us to our discussion of our dichotomies. You know, the book loves to compare and contrast. So this part is going to be basically comparing universalists versus particularists. What that means is the universal feminist aspect, but also caring for the issues of women amongst their differences and their diversities, like I just said. So universalists are going to embody the aspects of all women, whereas particularists are going to embody the feminist aspects of women, of specific categories of women, whether it may be gay women or black women or rich women or poor women, housewives, working women, you name it. The gendered spectrum is who they are trying to individually pertain to. And it's not even a combating thing, it's more of a working together type thing, however, in their own ways, but still together. And that's what the challenge comes in. So overall, it follows the feminist solidarity model, which focuses not just on the intersections of race, class, nation, and sexuality in different communities of women, but on mutuality and co-implication, which suggests attentiveness to the interweaving of the histories of these communities. So basically what it's saying is that the different communities of women, however mutually having issues, still have their individual issues, and so they interweave one another. However, because of their histories of being women and the implications of just being a woman or a gender person in general, however, each having their own diverse issues. So that's where this model comes into play. So then, of course, we have our handy dandy table, as we do in every chapter, every video. So this table can be found on page 249, and it's called Gender Divisions of Resistance to and Produced by Governmentality, Militarization, and Neoliberalism. So the comparisons that we have for this one is going to be... So we have, of course, our masculinized side and then our feminized side. So we have our universalists, our particularists, our globalists, local NGOs versus grassroots, online versus offline, global feminism versus transitional feminism, theory versus practice, experts versus activists, individual versus collective. So, though, just keep those in mind as we continue to discuss what's going on and what the book has to say about it, and of course what I have to say about it as well. So feminist resistance, directed at challenging the crisis of representation, insecurity, and sustainability, also takes other symbolic forms that do not require large-scale mobilizations, technological access, or pop culture fame. So, as we know, a lot of the crisis of representation, insecurity, and sustainability from the feminist and female perspective is spoken about through mobilizations such as grassroots organizations, technological assets, and such as social media and pop culture fame. So a lot of our pop culture women often speak out about issues against women because they have a platform to do so. However, those aren't the only cases of these gender resistances, because those are what the name of the chapter is, of course, and where we most prominently see gender resistances amongst women, females. So, but historically, there have been many other types of gender resistances that we faced or we have implicated, which include guerrilla theater and silent, peaceful protest as well, which is generally what we are not necessarily known for, but it's a recurrence, let's say that. So then the next issue, which to me is one of the most prominent issues, which where I want to get into the most, is okay. So we've had our gender resistances. We talked about that already, right? But now we come to the issue of how do we combat this? How do we change this? Like, what is the future of this? A lot of people see it as simply adding women to male places. So how, for instance, in the last couple chapters, we discussed the militarization of it, how it's predominantly male in military settings, and then, with a few women. And if we just add more women, that'll make it equal, right? Not really. Because simply adding women to public power without adding men to domestic labor and caretaking, without holding elite men and women responsible for undermining webs of care, effectively exacerbates the crisis of social reproduction. So what this is saying is you can't just add women to male-dominated areas and call that inclusivity, call that equality, call it equity, because it's not, because those areas are still male with the, dichotomized male aspects that we talk about in every chapter. So to just interject women into that, they're still putting women into those male settings without changing the settings themselves. So just creating more uncomfortability, creating more domestic violence, creating more sexual assault, creating more of this just by interjecting women into a situation that isn't prepared to have women in it. So in order to kind of not necessarily reverse the roles and in an instant sense of getting back at or anything, but in a sense of balance, of creating balance, is we have to interject men into female roles as well. Instead of having housewives, we can have house husbands. Instead of female nurses being the normative, male nurses being more normalized. Instead of having few, male teachers, more male teachers. And, obviously vice versa. More women in positions of power, more women in political standpoints, more women in militarized areas, etc. Vice versa. There needs to be a combination of the two, because there needs to be an equality, a balance, as opposed to just, let's throw some women into that. That's not going to fix the issue. The book says merely increasing women's presence in militaries without also analyzing the power of gender will simply resex militaries to a certain degree without changing the masculinism and imperialism of the war system. So basically kind of what I just said, just obviously a little bit more formal, but basically it's saying it's going to simply resex militaries. So what that's saying is it's going to create the equality, the balance, like I was just saying, of sex amongst the military. So yes, there may be 40% female to 60% male, drastically more inclusive. However, the terms and the situations, the boundaries of the organization will still have the masculine and imperialistic or systematic issues embedded into it. Those are the things that need to be changed before and during, all together, while interjecting women into male settings and males into female settings. So basically, overall, when we see these gender resistances, when we see these, not necessarily, I don't want to call it attacks, but we see these interjections of women into these different spaces and men into different spaces that aren't necessarily social normative. This is where our gender resistances come about. But the major key point takeaway of these gender resistances, they're not for no reason. At the end of the day, it is to create equity in parenting, work, consuming, soldiering, office holding, decision making, property owning, anything you can think of. There needs to be an equity of it, not just. So when I say balance, I don't mean a balance of numbers. I mean balance of situation, balance of environment, balance of understanding, and that is what needs to be created, and that is what needs to be at the forefront of all gender resistances, and what everyone needs to understand about the gender resistances that we've experienced and that we're going to continue to experience. So that wraps up video number 6. I hope you genuinely enjoyed the series. This is the end of video number 6 out of 6, so this is the end of it. And it wraps up the entire class, and basically that was the end of the book, Global Gender Issues in the New Millennium, for my issues in Women's Studies class. Once again, this was Women Gender Studies 3010, and my name is Brittany Pettaway. I hope to see you maybe in another series, and thank you.